Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Whoa, I'm not even in my chair yet. Hi, everybody. How are ya? It's me, Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and it is that time again. It is office hours Ask Me Anything, which I do every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time, and it is 6:31 p.m. Italy time. I'm almost on time for my own event. Today I remembered to turn my microphone on. Is my microphone on? Headset microphone. Focus, right? Yes? No? God damn it. My mic's not on again. God, I gotta put on the other one. Ugh. I did it again. I messed up my microphone. Can you guys ever forgive me? Oh my God. Hi, Paul. I did it again. Oh gosh. Hi, everybody. You guys, I need a little forgiveness today. Yesterday, I forgot to turn on my microphone for the first minute and 20 seconds of the podcast. Today, I turned on the microphone, but the wrong one. When do I get a vacation? Oh gosh, I'm not having a great day. I have to admit, I'm having a bit of a frustrating day, but it's nobody's fault but my own, and I'm getting in my own way. So we're using the worst mic today, not the better mic today, but that's okay because the important thing is we're here together. We're here together and we have each other. And it's office hours, ask me anything, and I will just speak into this mic. Man, ugh, I don't drink, but I should start. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and this is where I remind everybody that you can ask your questions anonymously, like if something's going on at work or you don't want to be seen in the LinkedIn or YouTube channel posting your question with your name on it. Remember, all questions, anonymously or not, will be put into the description of the YouTube video that gets archived on YouTube so that people looking through office hours archives can easily find what they might be interested in, since not everybody's interested in everything, and that's okay. So let's see. Let's set up my system. Paul says microphone is on. That's good. We've got one person watching in YouTube. Hi, one person in YouTube. What else do we have? Someone wants to throw virtual tomatoes at me. I'm for it. Let's see. Let's go into LinkedIn and catch who's here. Kiran Mai, hello. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and basically I just hang out for about an hour and I take questions. All questions are welcome. And we did get this anonymous link works week round, so you can send in a question anytime you have one. You can that's deltacx.link/AMA for Ask Me Anything. And we did get a question last week, and I'm going to read it to you and I'm going to give you my opinion. As always, these are my opinions, these are my thoughts, these are my preferences, these are my experiences. You may get other information from other people. Okay, my light is on. Hi, Maggie says, hi, Debbie. Hi, Maggie. I was just talking to someone who used to live in Iowa, Scott R., if he shows up. He used to live in Iowa, and I said, ooh, talk to Maggie P. Okay. Question was, what would your advice be to someone with an anthropology, ethnology background, a master's degree, with experience in qualitative research, in-depth interviews, participant observation, etc., who would like to move from scholar research to software and product-focused UX research? I don't have any experience in agile, design thinking, workshops, design sprints, lingo, wireframing, and other things that the UX experts coming out of design-oriented schools are good at. Where is the best place to start? What would be step number 2? Thanks for taking time to answer our questions. Anonymous person, you are welcome. And believe it or not, I get this one from time to time. There are some places from where we see a bit of a natural migration into the UX universe. And I would say that anthropology and ethnology is definitely one of them. I also hear from other people, since of course this isn't a move that I made, so I can't speak from my personal experience, but I hear from other people that one of the big differences is that when you come from academia, you're very used to dealing in kind of sometimes endless seeming deadlines like, well, hey, this is just for research or this is scholarly and we're just going to take weeks and months and really get into this and write long papers. And obviously, in the corporate world, there's a lot more focus on how fast we can move and efficiency, and people don't want long papers. It's more about the nuggets, the atomic research and the nuggets we can put into a PowerPoint deck or a Keynote deck. So, thing one, I think your background is nice and could be a good move in. Really, there's no bad move into UX or CX, but I do find that people who have done this type of human research in the past could be set up a little bit better than someone who hasn't. So, what should you do? Now, again, I wish you were here because I have some follow up questions. My first question would be have you done any UX or CX specific training or education? For example, are you assuming that all of your research just translates directly, or have you already done some UX courses or something that would help you, shift any habits that are more anthropology or ethnology or academic towards real world, agile, and the like. If you haven't and you're open to that, I have been recommending curiositytank.com, which is Michelle Ronson. And I don't make any money from that. I just want to see her thrive and because I trust her. So check out what she's got. Those may be some good courses that are worth taking that will help you take what you know and can do and kind of shift it a little bit more into the world you're looking to get into. As for experience with Agile, it's really hit and miss. That there's you can always read my book about this stuff, but my book is more of a this is what's going wrong with it. So I do have a podcast on Agile. I think it was episode 30 something. So please go back into the live podcast playlist and take a look for that one. Yeah, Maggie is saying, can we talk about Agile and UX? How do you see this fitting into your world? Maggie, did you catch the Agile podcast? Because that's probably some of my best and most recent information on where I believe UX fits best into Agile. Now, to the person who asked the question, unfortunately, you might show up to a company where they haven't read my book or seen my podcast, and their approach to Agile is normally to try to exclude research or exclude anything that looks like it's going to take time. And so that's why it's going to be good for you to learn some of the techniques where we can get the benefit of quality, deep scientific UX research with good technique in weeks rather than months, or many weeks rather than months. What can you do in 2 or 3 weeks rather than months? And I think that will be a good habit to get into just because of how fast paced a lot of places are. Design thinking, you might know, I think is a pile of garbage. You're welcome to watch that episode. Design thinking has jumped the shark was episode 50. That's an easy number to remember. Design sprints, I did a podcast on why I don't like those. So that one was called Design Sprints Are Devolving and Evil, I think it's called. So you can, that was podcast number 40 something. So again, all of these are available in YouTube or in the podcast that goes out on Apple, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. So these are available there. Obviously, no charge for any of these, but if you're interested in one person's opinion on these things, you can certainly get that. When it comes to, so you mentioned wireframing. I'm looking at your question. When you mention wireframing and things other UX people can do, it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to get into what's typically called UX design, or what I call being a CX architect, then you would want to learn things around information architecture, wireframing, and prototyping. Those are typically kind of those, when people think design, they think that cluster of things. I'm going to be doing a free course tomorrow on information architecture, as I find it's something that's too often glossed over, especially in boot camps. Again, it is a bit at the building blocks level. I'm not going to be able to get in too deep. I only have an hour, which will make me an hour late for my cousin's birthday party, but I didn't want to cancel on you guys, and I didn't want to say no to him, so we're going to have a hard stop tomorrow. So it'll be a bit of an intro to information architecture, because again, I find it is just too glossed over, and honestly, I think the hour I can give is probably more than some people learned at some of their schools at any level. So I think you have to think about what you want to do, and if you want to specialize more in research, then that's just the path that you want to take, and you want to focus on research and testing approaches, methodologies, techniques, do's and don'ts, strategies. When we pick one type of research over another, best practices. How many people do UX people tend to research with, for what we consider a statistically significant sampling? I always have a problem saying that. Okay, just checking. So I guess think about what you want to focus on or specialize in. So because you can focus on the research and testing aspect and look for your UX researcher jobs. Though remember, even though you have that master's, even though you have that background, technically you might be a UX junior because you haven't had a job in UX before. And some employers, and again, this is going to be up to the employer, so I can't say one way or another, may or may not feel that your previous work translates. Again, your previous work might translate because some of it looks like UX work. And your previous work might not translate because it wasn't UX work and because it might have been more academic. So just know that you're not guaranteed to come into UX at a mid-level or senior level or higher because you have other work experience. If this is your first UX job, you might be a UX junior. If you're here, please give me a follow-up question. If that didn't cover it, you can always send it anonymously, and I'll check my email for anonymous questions. And we've got a question. Yay! Let's see. Someone's asking an anonymous question. And let's copy and paste it for the YouTube description. Okay, and now let's read it. And again, everybody, keep these questions coming. I will be here for an hour. I usually stay that long, and all questions are welcome. So let's see. This anonymous question says, "Hi, Debbie." Hey, Debbie. "I work in a field and a company that are both extremely new to UX, and honestly, it's pretty exhausting to have to continue justifying myself and my methods over and over due to the lack of understanding. I'm considering leaving the company to find a place that just gets UX with an infrastructure ready to support it. But I know from past experience this can be tough to find. What's your advice or experience on finding a UX encouraging company to work with? Thanks." Thanks for a great question. Maggie, I see your question and I will answer it next. Let me copy and paste it in, and we'll get to Maggie's question after this one because this one is super. Thank you to the person who asked it. So, yeah, you're right. Very often in UX, people still don't understand what we do. They think UX just draws boxes on a page, makes things pretty, or they see it at the building block level, and which we talked about yesterday. And yes, let's just say that the reason why there's a term UX maturity of a company is because there are so many companies that still don't get UX, and they think we are order takers, not problem solvers. They think we are order takers, not problem finders. There's so much that we could be hopefully improving and fixing out there, and I'm always doing my best to speak up for these things, and of course it's in my book and all my podcasts. I'm always hoping my podcasts are giving you guys some ammunition for some of these difficult experiences at your jobs. So, if you were here, I'd probably want to know if there's any particular team or department or role that tends to uh, not get you the most, or if it's just everybody. But it is true that very often this can be something that is a deal breaker, and people just leave the job because they're not only not understood and not well utilized, but they can't create change. And it can feel very helpless, and it can feel like, what am I doing here? They don't get what I do, and I can't seem to fix this. And again, if you have a manager who doesn't support you, or you have a manager from some other department, like some people answer to marketing, and marketing may not get us, it may feel like something you can't change. I have varying advice on how to try to change it. I would say take a look at some of my podcasts on, I think the Agile podcast has the cost of poor quality and some math you can do that shows how much it ends up hurting your company in time and effort and money and customer support and public goodwill when you release garbage. And I think sometimes the only way to get through to a company is to show them the time and money that they're losing because they really don't want to consider your thoughts or your feelings or what you think is the importance of your job. But maybe if you show them how much money they are losing or some of these other costs of poor quality, sometimes you can get through to them. But since your question really asked, what's your advice or experience on finding a UX encouraging company to work with? I would have to say, hands down, my best experiences were at agencies. Now, many people don't like working at agencies. Very often, agencies want freelancers, so the job isn't necessarily consistent or full time. It's a little bit more project based, and sometimes you get nothing. Um, some people don't like the speed of agencies, or they don't like the variation of projects. They want to specialize in this thing and get into that domain. Whereas when I work at an agency, I'm working at healthcare one week and I'm working for famous audio company the next week. So I love that stuff. I love agencies. I welcome that. And I will say, nearly all of my agency, few sucked, but nearly all of my agency experiences were positive in that even though I was being brought in as a freelancer or a hired gun, it was by an agency that understood what I could do and understood the benefit of bringing someone like me in for that client or project, which meant that in many, but not all cases, I was given the time I needed and the rope I needed, and I could strategize my own project. And I did have to answer to other people, but they were people who were generally supportive because anything that got the project done well and created a great outcome for the client was something they wanted to support. So, while I know agency work isn't for everybody, I will say that's where I had my best experiences. And while I like any job that I get, usually at least at the beginning, I do tend to prefer agency work and freelancing. And of course, I am available for agency work and freelancing. Speaking of which, totally unrelated, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel here. We're hovering just under 570 subscribers, and I'm always trying to bump that up. You get a couple of more YouTube features unlocked when you hit 1,000. So if you like any of the things that I do, even though I know sometimes people will disagree with the things that I say and do, won't you please subscribe and tell other people? Hopefully, nice things. So that's probably my best medium-sized answer for that because it would be way too long to try to go into a long thing about how to try to convince everybody that UX works. Probably I would also say go into the YouTube channel in the conference sessions and mini workshops playlist. And look for Stop Evangelizing UX. That's got some tips as well, and also tells you why traditional evangelism doesn't work. Paul says it's not necessarily better in Fortune 500 companies that get UX. They're susceptible to silos, and you'll end up hearing things like, we need you to UX this thing, says Paul, and he's certainly right. Denise, I see you, and I'm copying and pasting your question, but we're going to do Maggie's question first and then get to Denise's question. So thank you, anonymous person. Keep the anonymous questions coming. I see another one has come in, so I will have to look at that one after Maggie and Denise. So let's take a look at Maggie. When is it a good time to update a persona? How do I know it's time to do so? Super question. And we touched on that a little bit last night in some examples I gave during the CX Proficiency Model podcast. That's episode 56. I suggest watching that one. So, let's assume that a company has an existing set of personas, and let's say that you're starting a new project, or maybe you just got hired and you're getting to know what they've got. How do you know if it's time to update the personas? The best way to know is to do some research and see if what you learn matches the personas. And again, you might say, they don't want me to do that. Well, otherwise, you're just guessing if the personas are current or not. So, really, the best way to go is to see if you can get maybe 2 weeks to do some interviews. Take the existing personas, and let's say you interview 4 or 5 people of each type. I always would love to interview 10 if I can, but I can't always get that many. So what if you could find 5 people that matched each persona? So if there's 5 personas, that's 25 interviews. So maybe that takes you a couple of weeks. Maybe it takes you a third week to interpret it and get it together. You would then see, okay, after speaking to people about their mental models, needs, fears, habits, motivations, tasks, or jobs to be done, and some of the other things that might relate to the domain or the company or the product, you can see, do these personas seem relevant, or did I learn some new things about these people that make me think these personas need updating? Did I learn somewhere along the way that maybe there's a new, different type of customer audience who we should be learning more about? Sometimes research with people who don't seem like your target audience can reveal a new target audience. So I would say I tend to look at updating personas if I start getting research that shows the personas don't seem to be who these people are anymore. And I know that there's a general suggestion right now that given the pandemic and the economy and the way that a pandemic and an economy crash could make people's needs change, make their tasks change, make their fears, motivations, habits, mental models change. I know there is a general recommendation right now that companies engage in some fresh CX research to flesh out new personas, identify new target markets, and things like that. So I would say big change in technology probably means new personas. Big change in the world probably means newer updated personas. So typically the personas are updated when the target audiences change or something in the world around them has changed and is likely being reflected on their behaviors. Thank you. And that's a good question. Now we've got Denise. Denise says, what do you think about a jobs to be done approach? Do you do a jobs to be done survey before as user research? Alrighty. So I have to admit, I'm a little bit more of a task analysis person than a jobs to be done person. I'm under the impression they are close, but not necessarily identical. So I have to admit here that I am not a jobs to be done expert. Again, I'm a little bit more of a task analysis person, but I do think that they're both important. You got to do one of them. We've got to do one of them because either we have to figure out our target customers' tasks and why they're on our site, in our app, standing in our store, or what jobs they have to be done, which are tasks. So in general, I don't do surveys. Check out episode, was it 52, you guys? This is from memory. You tell me. And I use guys as gender neutral. I hope that doesn't offend anybody because I don't want to offend anybody. And even when I do, I still don't want to offend anybody. Um, Episode 50 something, maybe 52, was surveys. So, in general, I don't like to send out surveys for pretty much any reason. There's really two good reasons to send out a survey. What's the word I'm looking for? Screening for research and trying to recruit for research. I think we said that in the podcast. So in general, I'm not for surveys. So I generally would not survey people about what are their tasks or their needs or their jobs to be done. Since you deserve a better answer than that, I'm going to just Google jobs to be done survey to see if it's something that I find so absolutely compelling that now I think you should do it. But I noticed that as I was typing it in Googly Google, it came up with jobs to be done survey template. Y'all know how I feel about templates, not so well. Jobs to be done interview template. Let me see what they're suggesting you ask. Jobs to be done. Well, there's interviewing and there's surveying, not the same. Let's see what this says. Oh, oh, download the template. All right, let's see. I just Googled this. I've never seen this before. I can't say I'm for or against any of these people. I have no idea what I'm about to see. And it's a zip file, so I might not see it in a reasonable amount of time. And it is still downloading. So, is this a virus, y'all? This doesn't feel good. Close window. Okay, so I may not ever find out what that is. But jobs to be done survey. Jobs to be done survey. Let's try Google Images and see if I see something. Jobs to be done survey. How important is this to you? How well is this currently being satisfied? Oh, boo, 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 boo. Okay, sorry. Denise, I'm not a fan of surveys. I think the better way to learn more about people's jobs to be done or tasks is going to be observational studies, but of course, where we can't do that, interviewing and learning more about people, or maybe trying to run some sort of remote thing where maybe they're on Zoom sharing their screen and showing you how they do something. But I find you tend to learn a lot more by watching people than surveying them. And my second choice would be asking them on an interview rather than surveying. And Paul says, boo. Denise says, we did, and I see the survey is not clear to the users, and now I'm fighting with my boss. Send your boss to my surveys podcast, where we basically talked about why surveys in general, so not specifically about jobs to be done, but why surveys in general are typically a poor choice and why UX generally stays away from them. You'll see that marketing loves surveys because it's easy to turn them into numbers and they like the quantitative data. But in reality, UX tends to prefer qualitative data, and so we typically do not rush towards the surveys and the pressing the smiley face in the public bathroom because we just don't end up learning how, why, what happened. We just know X% of people say, we did a good job today. That could be a lie. How many times have you answered a survey or a question with a lie just to get out of the survey or get out of the question or something like that? I'm unfortunately not capable of lying in most circumstances, so I just end up saying the things people don't always want to hear. Thank you for that. I hope that helps. And let's take a look at our next anonymous question. This is a big day for anonymous questions, y'all. Let's see. This one says, I sometimes find myself going like, I haven't done X in a while, like a journey map, and I worry I may not be exercising my CX or UX process skills. Any suggestions on how to flex our muscles when we're feeling this way? Maybe something with continued education. Well, you guys know that I am a super fan of continued mentoring and coaching. I think that if you had a mentor or coach, that this is the kind of thing you could talk to them about, and then you could possibly spin up a fake project or a sample project. You want to practice on a customer journey map. Well, remember, a customer journey map comes from doing real interviews. So you would have to spend time doing some real interviews to come up with a customer journey map, because we don't guess what someone's journey is. We know what their journey is because we asked them, or because of observational studies where we watched them. So just remember that I would say a mentor or coach would be good, because just because you're doing something or practicing something doesn't mean you're getting it right, or doesn't mean that it couldn't be better. And I think having that third party who's going to challenge you a little bit, like we talked about yesterday in episode 56, I think that's going to be really important. Paul is still on surveys because he's on LinkedIn, and that's usually a couple of minutes behind the YouTube stream. And he says, a consumer will say anything because they are largely answering by way of their aspirations, not their actual behavior, which is another good point. Sometimes we answer the question and we answer it of how we wish we were, or how we wish things were, rather than, excuse me, how they are right now. So good point from Paul in the audience. We've got another question from so that would be my answer to flexing muscles. Hopefully that helps. If you are here, remember, guys and gals and everyone, you can ask any follow-up questions you want. You can even ask a follow-up question to someone else's question. It doesn't have to be your question. If you have a follow-up, let's hear it. It can be in the YouTube or LinkedIn chat, or of course it can be anonymously through the deltacx.link/AMA, where I will happily take all the questions. So Jason, I see your question, but we got one in the email first, so I'm going to answer that one first. Someone says, hi, Debbie. Thank you for all of your great advice. Oh, thank you. I know it's not always great, but I do my best. Why is it that most available UX job positions where I live are asking for UX UI designer with excellent HTML CSS knowledge for prototyping? I'm really not into coding, and I feel I won't be able to find a UX UI job in the near future. Is this knowledge really essential for UX UI designers? Thanks. Super question. And I think we covered some of this in the old in the old, not boot camp, in the old podcast. I've got boot camp on the brain. Who doesn't? Let me see. I'm going to start searching and telling you what episode numbers these are, guys, so I'm not guessing. That was, let's see, that was code. So that was, should CX and UX practitioners code? That's episode 41. Survey was 51. I guessed 52. I was close. Should you code is episode 41. Now, my general opinion is you shouldn't do anything you don't want to do. So if you don't enjoy writing code, then you're probably not going to like to learn it to do it at a job where they're going to expect you to do it a lot. So make sure that as you are learning skills or investigating skills that you want to learn, that you're picking the ones that you want to do. Some people tell me, but Deb, I don't want to do visual design. And I say, I'm not going to make you do visual design. I don't do visual design, but that does mean that we might lose out on some jobs. But are those jobs that you would have wanted, because the job is going to ask you to do something that you might not know how to do or might not want to do? So obviously, right now the trend is towards the jack of all trade and the unicorn. I'm really hoping we'll trend away from that. Hopefully, I hoped for it this year, but maybe next year. Because I think ultimately the jack of all trade or the unicorn is typically great at one thing, good at something else, okay at something else, and sometimes mediocre to poor at the rest of it. And I'm not too sure why our companies hire us when we're mediocre to poor at things, or don't like doing them. So I would say to you, if you feel like you're not going to get a job without doing HTML and CSS, and if you feel like you're willing to kiss that frog and do coding day after day to get a job, then you're learning front-end dev, probably HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If it's something you just don't want to do, then you have to keep applying to the jobs that know that front-end dev is an engineer's job, and that our best UX people are going to focus all their time on UX and not on coding. Or maybe you can find a company that believes that prototyping can be done with software, Acture, InVision, some of these other ones. And you can always ask the job hiring manager that as well. You know, does a UX prototype have to be in code, or if I can use Acture or Framer, is that good enough? And sometimes they say, oh yeah, okay, do that. Or sometimes they say, no, we require code. So check that out. Maggie says the pandemic is not helping. People are trying to get those unicorns, and people are trying to become unicorns just to find a job. And let's face it, there's only so much any of us can be a unicorn. I find it's very rare that someone is genuinely good at, I mean, UX in itself is like 6 jobs, and then visual design is a job, and then front-end dev is a job. You know, they're really expecting us to be good at 8 jobs, and it's just a recipe for burnout. So I'm not for it. Jason is in YouTube, thank you for waiting, and says, what is your view on using user stories for Scrum and Agile methods in teams? Now, typically the reason we are using user stories is because we are looking to get away from traditional requirements writing. Now, that doesn't mean that requirements aren't gathered, but from my understanding is that people who think they're more Agile-y or Scrum-y are typically looking to use user stories more than just a giant requirements document. I think user stories can be great when they have been written with the user in mind. I have definitely seen user stories that were not written with the user in mind and were either written with the stakeholders' needs in mind. I will never forget one user story I saw. It said something like, as the QA manager, I need this to work because, and I was like, that's not a story. And I remember a product manager once had a story that was like, as the product manager, I want to make users do this. And I was like, then that's not a user story. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the format of a user story is as a certain type of user, usually we're going with an audience or a segment or a persona, I want or need to whatever is their task. So this is where our task analysis or jobs to be done comes back to haunt us in a good way. So as a certain type or persona of user, I want or need to accomplish a certain task. And then usually there's a reason at the end so that I can be more efficient, so that I can pay my bill, so that whatever. And the idea of the user story is not only does it set everybody up for what the feature or the piece of the feature that we're building, and gives engineering something to test against, but it also clues UX into what we're doing and why. And of course, we hope with a user story that we're keeping everybody customer-centric, that we're keeping everybody focused on the user rather than some of these crazy things that I've seen in requirements and other things. So I think that user stories can be good when written well. Now, then the question becomes who writes them, and this is sometimes a fight at some companies. Is it the BA? Is it the PM? Is it the two of them together? Is it UX? Is it UX with the PM? I'm not going to tell you who should write them. I'm just going to say that they should be written with the user and customer in mind based on a task they are trying to accomplish, not based on something marketing wants to push them to do, not based on something a business analyst hopes they can make happen because they like the sound of it. I've seen too many business analysts trying to be pretend UX people and say, so they overwrite these things sometimes, requirements and user stories. So they might say, as a user, I want a graph where the x-axis is hats and the y-axis is cups and the bars are 5 millimeters wide and blue so that I can see a chart of this versus this. That's not a good user story because that is a fake solution. That is a pseudo solution because we don't know if that's exactly what customers need. We might know that they need some sort of chart or graph. We might know that they need an addition or an improvement to their dashboard, but we might not know exactly what that is or how it should look. And that's where letting CX and UX specialists do our human-centered design process and determine what's going wrong with this dashboard or the data visualization and come up with the right solution. So we don't want to see requirements or user stories overwritten, like written too much. And Jason, feel free to cue this up to where I started your question and share it with people at your company, since I don't know, I didn't check where you work. I don't even know who you are. You're on YouTube. So this is my advice. We don't want these things to be overwritten. A user story should just say, as a user, I need something to cover my head so that I will look cute. What will it be? I don't know. We have to find out. As a whatever, I need a data visualization that will help me make a decision about quarterly spending. Great. Now I get to put on my critical thinking hat and then my doing good CX work hat. And then I can go and figure out what do these people need to see and do to understand their spending, strategize their spending, make actionable decisions about their spending, and I'll come up with the best data visualization for that. So Jason, let me know if that idea and advice helps. Again, that's just my opinion, but that's what I would suggest. And you are, of course, welcome to, guys, you're always welcome to share this with anybody at your company or coworkers or LinkedIn. These answers are public. They're for everybody. And I'm sure some of you would like to share these with your coworkers or managers, even if you didn't ask a question. So feel free to share those videos out. And Maggie says, yeah, 8 jobs for a unicorn and still not getting paid as much as a developer. Look, it is true. We are in an ugly spot right now and the economy's not helping. If companies don't understand UX, it's unlikely they're going to give us the right tasks to do. And that's where some of this unicornization comes from. If they are suffering in the economy, then they're going to really want to ultra unicorn people together and try to pay them less. So we're just in a really ugly spot right now. I really hope next year will be better, not only for the economy and people's health and safety, but of course for UX being better understood and more appreciated. Jason said, that helps. Thanks, Debbie. You're welcome, Jason. Ask anything you've got. This is office hours. Ask me anything. Please feel free to ask me anything. And of course, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be YouTube. The Delta CX YouTube channel. You can find it by going to deltacx.tv. That will redirect you there. And you can also hang out on my Slack, which is deltacx.link/join Slack. Totally free and open. We've got about 160 people there. So it's not too active, but there's a little activity there, and I always welcome more. And I hang out there too. If you see me there, it is not a bot. It is actually the me. Ankita is here. I'm so sorry if I get your name wrong, but I can see it and just not say it very well. Let's see. Ankita says, I really liked the words that the user story should be written keeping users and customers in mind. Hey, that's just the way it is. That's why it's called a user story. Notice it is not called a let's make people do crazy stuff story. So yeah, user stories should have the user in mind, yet so many people at our companies forget that and write wacky stuff. Ankita says, any tips on how to educate PMs and other people on the same, as well as help them understand this perspective? Well, you're welcome to share this video. We did a podcast some time ago, let me see what number it was, on product managers and how they should best work with UX. That was episode 22. That's from March. That's an oldie. Doesn't that feel old now, people? March is like a million years ago, back when we could go outside. So that one might help a little bit, but it's very difficult, because remember, we see it as educating product managers on something. They see it as being bossed around, bullied, complained at, controlled. So it's a very delicate balance when we want to try to tell someone else that they should change something that they've been doing. This may have to come down from more of a manager level. So if you find that you've got product managers or business analysts who are not really writing correct user stories that match the best definition of a user story, you might have to go to your manager and have them talk to the product manager's manager. Not because we want to report people and complain about people, but just to say that there is the possibility that at our company, this is not being done well or correctly, and that all product managers should be properly trained or educated or updated on the best ways to write user stories, that they're called user stories because they're meant to focus on the users, that they must focus on a user's real task or job to be done, so that we are really focused on bringing value. This is part of that value stream you always hear about in Agile and Scrum. So this is part of the value stream. And if we look at a user story and it is lacking value, then we've got to change the story. We've got to change direction. Agile says change direction when you find you're not creating value. Come on, let's create value, you and me. Hopefully that helps. So again, I wouldn't go right to a product manager and go, "You're writing user stories wrong," or "Debbie Levitt says you're writing user stories wrong." You could get punched in the face. So I would probably let managers handle this, rather than trying to take it on one. That would be my suggestion there. Arco says, hello, Arco. Let's get you in the list of questions that I was asked today. Arco says, hello, Debbie. Hello, Arco. As a startup founder, how important is it for me to understand the UX methodology? Super question. You might be the first startup founder we've had come into the chat room, and so I wish we got more questions like this. So I found that there's only so much of the UX methodology you need to understand. I mean, ultimately, how much of any jobs domain can you understand? You know, you can understand a little bit about what marketing does, but you're not going to understand everything they do or how or why. If you're a developer, then you'll understand what developers do. But if you weren't a developer, there would be only so much that you would understand what developers and certain engineers do. So I think it's important I tell people to be conversational in UX. You don't have to be fluent. You don't have to try to become a UX specialist, but it'd be really important for you to understand that the whole point of CX or UX is to predict and mitigate risk and to make sure that what is being built for your potential and current customers has real value and matches their real needs. Now, we know this not because we guessed at it, not because we kept doing MVPs until we got it right. The MVP model is really designed for startups that don't have UX people working there. So Arco, one of the first things you can do, of course, is bring on a senior or higher level UX practitioner if you don't have one already. If you want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk to you about what you're doing and what you need. I do a lot of freelancing for startups, but ultimately, I would suggest starting with a high-level person. Yes, eventually you would like to have juniors working there, but if you're only going to make one hire, make it someone with extensive experience who can hit the ground running. So usually 5 years of UX-specific experience or more, not visual design, not UI. Make sure it's UX research and interaction design and more research. You really, ultimately, Arco, you need the research more than you need anything else. The biggest mistakes that startups make, in my opinion, revolve around things related to product market fit. We didn't fully understand what customers wanted. We guessed at what they wanted, or we thought because we liked this, they would like this. There's so many mistakes that can be made around product market fit, which is another way of saying around ideas and the exact execution of the idea. Because remember, the idea might be, I want to put something on my head, but it could be critical thinking hat, or it could be good CX hat, or it could be over here I have a woolly winter hat. So I just can't reach it because I took off my wireless headset, my wireless mic. So just because we think somebody needs something, there's still so little we know. And I think the best thing startups can do is invest in a little bit of time and money for UX research. And that would really help them. I think it would really keep startups from making a lot of mistakes, because if you think about it, those mistakes are very costly. It might look cool to say you released an MVP and you got feedback from the public, but if the feedback was negative or more negative than positive or showed that you had a lot of things to fix, the best question to ask yourself is, how could I avoid making that many mistakes next time? So remember that UX has a process of research, content, architecture, interaction design, prototyping, testing, and iterating. And you want to test in the UX phase before the engineers build it. And that's something that MVPs miss it as well. In reality, the right MVP is for UX to research it, create it as a prototype, so a model, but a fake model, test that. That's your MVP testing. They can show that to a good sampling of real or archetypal customers, and you can see if you're going in the right direction before you spend time and money on engineering building it. So lots that I can say about startups and things like that. So I would say maybe contact me privately. Happy to talk to you for free and see if I can answer more questions and things like that. Dragana says, "Hi, Debbie. Where can I find your podcast episodes?" Always a good question. You can find my podcast episodes in a few places. If you like videos, like the one you're watching now, they are all archived on my YouTube channel. And I've got a redirect there called deltacx.tv. So that will send people over to the YouTube channel. So if you like video versions, you can find them there. You can watch them at 1.5x if you want. And I just talk a little bit faster. If you like audio only, the podcasts are on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify as Delta CX. So just search those for Delta CX and you can find those. One quick difference is that on YouTube, all of my videos are archived, including this one, in a playlist called Office Hours. Every video I do gets archived on YouTube, but only the ones I classify as podcasts and give numbers to go out in the audio only iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. So best to hang out on YouTube over there. And thank you, and I hope you will subscribe. Thank you. Okay, we've got 10 more minutes, and we've got what looks like, Paul says, good answer on startups. Thank you, Paul. Elijah is in the YouTube channel, and this looks like a comment more than a question. Elijah says, just found you yesterday, and I've been learning a lot from your content. Wow, thank you, Elijah. Welcome, welcome. I'm about to finish the Flatiron UX course, and I wanted to ensure I learned the right things, and it sounds like I did. Elijah, obviously, we all run hot and cold on boot camps and some of the boot camp courses. Flatiron is not one of my preferred programs at this time. So as for whether or not you did the right thing, only you can say that. There is no way I'm going to say, I don't know you, but you did the wrong thing. That's not my style. So, hopefully it works out for you. Hopefully you learned the right things. Hopefully you get that job. I want to see everybody succeed. I gain nothing from anybody failing anything. So, I really hope that it works out for you. And of course, if you have any problems or questions along the way, just come back here. Office hours is free, and it's every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So, depending upon where you are, I don't know if you're London, I don't know if you're America, but wherever you are, just translate 6:30 Italy time to where you are, and you can find me here every Tuesday live on YouTube. Happy to take people's questions. I do have some people who are frequent guests here who are in boot camp courses and are typically asking me things like, I learned about this, but when would I do it? Or I learned about this, but I'm not totally sure I get it. So sometimes people come here to have me fill in some blanks on things that they learned in their boot camp. So again, if you want a second opinion on anything, just swing on by. Arco says, thank you so much. That was a brilliant answer. We'll connect offline. Super. Please add me on the LinkedIn, and I'll send you a link to meet with me. And I forgot to check email for anonymous questions. No anonymous questions. Wanted to remind everybody. I know it's late in the broadcast. I forgot to do this earlier. I'm so sorry. I wanted to remind you guys. I am overlay. Overlay. I am offering free coaching sessions to. So, Elijah, you could do a free coaching session with me if you would like, or you can save it for later. If you would like a free coaching session with me, everybody only gets one. Don't be greedy. All you have to do is go to this link, which is deltacx.link/coaching, and you'll see a 15 minutes free option or a paid option. You're welcome to pay me, but if this is your first time having a private call with me, you are welcome to book the 15 minutes free. Quick note, do not book it if you want me to review your portfolio. I have a separate process for portfolio reviews. And let me put that up on the page thingy. I think it is portfolio-review. So if you want me to review your portfolio, different process. Please go to deltacx.link/portfolio-review. I will give everybody one portfolio review for free. I do these privately. I record a video using the system that I use for the podcast, and then I email it to you as a WeTransfer file. So no, it doesn't go on the YouTube channel. No, I don't broadcast it out. This is my private file to you. If you want to show it to other people, that's your business. You can show it to whoever you like, but I will not be broadcasting it anywhere. However, before you sign up for this, I ask that you watch our in full. I ask that you do two things. Number one, watch my video from our podcast on the most common portfolio mistakes that I see time and time again. Number two, fix them. It is a little bit of an insult and a little bit of a waste of my time when people claim they watched that video and then send me a portfolio with the common mistakes still there. Come on, guys, I ask for so little. I'm doing this for free for you. So please, the least you can do is watch my video on how to have a better portfolio and then fix your darn portfolio before you show it to me. It's the least you can do for us to be cuddly friends. So let's see. Elijah says, what do you think about using the term product designer as a junior designer? I know it's often confused with UX design, but also seen as a senior position that considers business needs. So Elijah, based on the information I have, that is not the definition of product designer that I have seen. The definition of product designer that I have seen most often, and again, you can know this from looking at job descriptions. So you don't have to believe me. You can go look at job descriptions and you will notice that product designer in nearly every case is identical to what we call UX UI. So typically a UX UI job or a product designer job, and let me copy and paste your question so I can get that into the YouTube description. Boom. So typically a product designer or a UX UI designer is someone who is usually a little stronger in the visual design, so the UI side, but also does typically the interaction design, wireframes, and sometimes information architecture. So it's usually not assumed that you can do UX research or testing, but sometimes they'll throw that in there because everybody wants the unicorn. But product designer is pretty much the same as a UX UI designer, and again, you can verify that by looking at jobs. Just poke around LinkedIn on jobs, look up UX UI, look up product design, and you'll see that they're pretty much the same. It does not imply product design does not imply that someone is more senior, and it does not imply that people are considering business needs. In fact, I have noticed that you are sometimes less likely to consider business needs if you are a product designer. Now, a product manager is supposed to be about business needs and customer needs and bringing these together. But a product designer is very often just a UX UI designer. As for considering business needs, I would say in UX we are, they try to make us do too much of that. Sometimes people are considering stakeholders and business needs way more than they're considering customers and users' needs, and that's where people go wrong. But sometimes they think, well, I'm new, so I have to make people happy, me, so I better kiss some stakeholder butt and just make what they want. That's not UX. That's not innovation. That's not critical thinking. Where's my critical thinking hat? That's not critical thinking. Get yourself a critical thinking hat and put it on. Keep it on. Where was I? I just love this hat so much. I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, back to what Elijah was saying. Elijah says, great to know. I've read a lot of conflicting articles on that topic. Yeah, and again, that could just be my opinion. There's a lot of opinions. I recently did a podcast on what should our titles be, and I redefine all of them because they're a mess. Under no circumstances should you be like, what's a product designer? If we don't know what our own titles mean, we have a problem. So I do have a podcast on how I wish that we could restandardize and rename people's titles. But I would say that if someone is telling you that a product designer takes business needs into account, I would treat that as a little bit of a manipulation, because remember, we are the customer's advocate. So if someone's trying to get us to shift away from caring for the customer and care more for business needs, they're probably trying to manipulate us. And let me quickly open up PowerPoint and show you a slide that I show people when this comes up when I'm doing like private corporate training. Because I've got a couple of slides about this, and if you guys don't mind staying late, I'd like to answer Elijah's question a little bit more fully. Where's my slides? Okay, here they come. Sorry, I have a deck with like 400 slides, so it takes a moment for them to come up. I'm only going to show you 2, so don't cry. I'm not going to show, well, actually, I'm going to show you, where'd they go? Oh, that's a different one. Where'd they go? Who took my slides? This is the downside to having 400 slides in a presentation is, where are my slides? Oh my God, I can't find them. I'm going to open up another talk. Stay late with me, people. I'm going to get there, I promise. I want to try to give extra love to Elijah here. Okay, here's my 2 slides from a different thing. Okay. Let me just hide some of my notes here so you don't read my notes. And let's do a screen share. Me plus screen 1. Me plus screen 1. Here we go. And Zoom. I hope you guys can see my slides. Yes? Let's put the chat in the side. See my slides? Okay. So this is typically what happens is somebody says, oh, UX, you really don't care so much about business goals. You're all about customers' needs, and you should be caring more about the business more, blah, 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 blah. And then I pull up this slide and I go, oh, yeah? Well, why aren't business goals and customer needs more aligned? I know it's easy to make me the scapegoat and go, rah, 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 you're not looking at the business enough and business needs. Why are they so different? Why is this the business need and this is the customer need? Well, like, I didn't do that. I don't see your slides, just the LinkedIn chat. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. Let's see. Close. Okay, so that didn't work. Sorry about that. Where's my... All right, I can't show my slides. I messed it up. Me. I've got these slides, and they look like this. Venn diagram. Business needs. Customer. Business. Customer. And then what happens is somebody says UX. You know, you guys don't care enough about business needs. You should care more about business needs. You know, we'll figure it out for the customer. And then what happens is I show a slide where these are overlapped, and I go, why isn't it this? Why aren't business needs more aligned with customers' needs? Why are we showing people, why aren't we aligned on that? Why is the business trying to get the customer to do this or sell the customer this? And we've researched with the customer, we got to know them, we learned their tasks and their needs, and they need this. Why is the business trying to sell them this? And the customer needs this, and then people point at UX and go, you're not making us happy. I go, it's not me. You're not being agile. If you were agile, you would shift the business needs towards the customer's needs. Is this making sense? Did I lose you guys? Um, people? Anyone? People still here? Am I still streaming? I'm running late. Okay. Phew, Elijah's back. So anyway, that was kind of my point there. And that's my concern there. So that's what I would say about that. Elijah says, I would love to get your feedback on my portfolio. I know Flatiron did miss a lot, but my instructor taught many of the things you mentioned in your video. Fingers crossed. I hope so. You know, a good instructor can fill in the blanks where sometimes the school is lacking. A good mentor or coach can, as I said last night. So if that is working for you, then good, please. I would rather hear that people are having good experiences. Scott says, we're still here. Did something break? Almost, Scott, because you weren't here and you were running late, and we're sad without you. Denise is back. And guys, I'm already running late, so Denise might have to have the last question unless Elijah has a follow-up question he wants to add, because I don't want to miss anything else he wants to add. Denise says, how can we win a discussion and make the design team agree on an idea or solution? Even though I support them with user research, I found myself in endless discussions. Who will make the final decision? That's a good question and definitely a tough one. So here's the problem there. If UX is not allowed to make a UX decision, then obviously we are lacking in power and autonomy, where we can't even make a decision in our own domain. Normally, a lot of these decisions where I've worked have fallen to a product manager, because people see an ideal product manager as having one foot on each side, that they care about the business and the goals and the strategies and the money, but then they also care about the customer and make sure that they're creating customer value and building things customers need. So I've seen very often the final decision is sometimes made by a product manager, because they're supposed to be having these both of these things in mind. If the product manager isn't doing that, or if that's not working out, then who makes that decision? And again, that brings up so many other questions. I think that what you're really saying is people at your job are just not letting you do your job, because hypothetically, if you said, hi, I'm the UX designer, specialist, whatever you are, and I drew this, I did my research, this is my interaction design, this is what we're doing, and I checked it, engineering can build it, it matches our user stories, it should be good, here it is. Now, if somebody says, oh, well, I don't like that, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what somebody likes. So if you're getting into these discussions with people over opinion, normally what I try to tell people is, well, we take it to user testing or usability testing or UX testing. I've heard it called, everyone's fighting over what to call it, but testing. If we take this idea or prototype and we run it by archetypal or representative customers, and we give them tasks to accomplish, and they accomplish the tasks well and efficiently, then this is a winner. If they don't accomplish the tasks well or efficiently, we learn from that testing and we iterate and we fix it, or we might have to go in another direction. But ultimately, if something tests well, I'm likely to tell my team, let the users speak, let the customers speak. If we can tell from testing that people accomplish their tasks well without meeting what I call the 4 horsemen of bad UX: frustration, confusion, disappointment and distraction. They're over there. Frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. If people can get through this without meeting them and having a poor experience, this should be ready to go. We should be building this. So if they're disagreeing on something that hasn't been tested, sometimes testing can help the argument, win the argument, break the argument. You can say to people, well, here's my actual prototype of my concept. Here, I made an actual prototype of your concept, and just pick 2. If you have a lot of people fighting, have yours and have a combination of all their ideas. And say, look, let's take both of these to traditional UX testing, and Let's see what works for people and what doesn't. Don't say what people like and what they don't like. It's not about emotions. Let's see what works for people and what doesn't. And then go from there. And usually what you'll find is both ideas have flaws, and sometimes both ideas have strengths, and sometimes where you go from there is a combination of the two, and you feel more confident that you've built something that's going to work for the user. So it's not so much so the problem is, I even say in my book, trying to get everybody to agree is a bit of a false idea. We can't get everybody to agree. And in reality, the main people we need to agree are the customers. We need the customers to agree, because they tested our prototype, that this is a good product that meets their needs or exceeds their needs and helps them with their tasks or their jobs. So I would see if you can rely on testing a little bit more to inform you, as well as uh, deal with these arguments, because some companies will take the voice of the customer as the um, official word, so that it's not. So remind people, it's not what the engineer likes over what the product manager likes, over what I like, over what marketing likes. Designing for customers and being customer centric is not about who likes what. Oh, Elijah's asking me what episode has the titles. Boop, bop, beep, bop, boop, bop, boop. Hold on. Episode 52. But if you go to the YouTube channel, deltacx.tv, you'll be able to search it. You can just search for titles. So, Denise, this is really complex. Obviously, my main advice to you is don't move to Germany yet. But I think that try to get people focused away from themselves about, I like this, I want this, and say, voice of the customer. We need the voice of the customer to decide. When we can't agree and we can't align, it shouldn't be opinion versus opinion or power versus power. We just bring in and this is what I do. I had a project a couple of years ago where I was very excited about my solution, and my client, this is a client, wanted something different. I said, okay, look, I think mine's going to work better, but hey, I'm open to learn. The best idea is the best idea no matter who it came from. So I made an actual prototype of mine. I made an actual prototype of his, which was easy because it was kind of a save as, because his was a variation of my idea, but it was different enough that it was worth testing. And we took them to testing, and we found that there was a big flaw in mine that somehow I missed, but I'm glad testing picked it up, and that there were kind of little flaws in each of them in different ways. And I said, great, we learned that, and now we can make a third version that's better and takes into account all these things. So I think that can be the best way to go, and just remind people that if we care about customer value, which is supposed to be all over Agile and Scrum, and if we care about being customer centric, which is all over people's fake promises and mission statements, then we have to invest a little research time and some testing time to get that voice of the customer, correctly run that testing, correctly interpret that testing, and come out and say, okay, here's what we learned, here's what we should do. I'm sorry we ran late. I'm very sorry, everybody. I try to keep these around an hour, but boop, boop, boop. So that's it. These will all be archived on the YouTube, and these do not go out as podcasts, so please subscribe. And for people who joined yesterday and said they loved my new special effects, hooray! Oh, wrong way. Hooray! I'm working on some more special effects, but right now, that's my only special effect, I think. I also built this. Hold on. So I can refer to last night's podcast if it comes up in conversation. Thanks to Stephanie in Luxembourg for the suggestion. But other than that, this podcast is not high on special effects. And of course, I'm producing it as I go. I have no one else working the equipment here. It's the Deb Show. Oh, Maggie, what do you mean Deb will have a soundboard? I have two. How did you not see that? Didn't you see the podcast with Mateo where I held up my 1993 soundboard? Somebody show Maggie episode, 53 with the soundboard on it. Yeah, watch towards the end. It's me holding up a 31-kilogram soundboard. Adis is here. Oh, that's so great. Adis says, you bring me so much joy. The confetti is the closest thing to a party. You know, with the way the world's looking right now, it is, even though it's the end of my confetti. We'll let it run to the end. Elijah says, wonderful. Thanks for everything. Elijah, you're welcome. Good luck with everything you're doing. Keep me posted. Let me know how I can help. And other than that, you guys, tomorrow I will be doing a 1 hour, not longer, lesson on information architecture. So it's going to be, it might just be at that building blocks level. Please forgive me. But I find that too many programs gloss over information architecture and tell you things like, now you need to make a website menu. And you guess at the menu, which I'm against. So there's that. All right, I'm going to wind down for now, but thanks again to everybody for all of your time and help. Sorry again, I keep having some technical problems with my microphones. I'm just going to, the hard part is I don't know if they're working until I'm streaming, and then you guys all suffer through me testing. So thank you for your patience and understanding, and hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow for the information architecture lesson. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.